You're listening to a production of the National Media Archive. To learn more or volunteer, go to nationalmediaarchive.com.
How does a lumber magnate become the founder of one of the world's greatest aerospace companies? Let's rewind to Detroit, 1881. William Edward Boeing was born into wealth. His father, Wilhelm, built a fortune in the American timber industry after immigrating from Germany. But imagine being 8 years old and suddenly losing your father. That's exactly what happened to William. Despite that blow, young William's inheritance from timber would later prove essential. He pursued science at Yale's Sheffield Scientific School, but didn't finish, choosing instead to chase business opportunities in the booming Pacific Northwest. Now, you might be wondering, why timber? Simple. Timber was the backbone of the region, supplying everything from homes to shipbuilding. This early expertise in wood would later intersect with another obsession, flight. But first, William had to become a master of the timber game, learning logistics and vertical integration, a business term meaning control over all steps from raw material to finished product. Let me tell you, understanding supply chains and resource management gave Boeing the confidence to take bold risks later. His upbringing was more than privileged. It was a crash course in entrepreneurship. So here's the setup. A young man with money, business acumen, and a restless curiosity. The conflict? The world was about to take flight, and William wanted to be at the controls. Picture this. It's 1909. William Boeing attends his first air show, watching, spellbound, as a manned flying machine lifts off. For the first time, he sees the impossible become possible. Now you might ask, what's so special about an air show? In 1909, powered flight was barely 6 years old. The Wright brothers had only recently stunned the world. William's fascination was instant. He tried, again and again, to hitch a ride in an airplane, but was repeatedly denied. Every rejection stoked his passion, for they're a classic case of psychological reactance, where being told no only makes you want it more. He began taking flying lessons and soon bought his first plane, the Martin Ta Hydroa float plane, meaning it could take off and land on water. But technical limitations, like unreliable engines and fragile airframes, left him dissatisfied. Now here's a crucial turning point. Instead of accepting these flaws, William said, I can build something better. That's the mark of an innovator, seeing gaps and refusing to settle for the status quo. The resolution? He set his sights on aircraft design and construction. This was the moment when Boeing's aviation journey truly took off. Let's enter William's modest Seattle workshop in 1916. He teams up with Navy Commander George Conrad Westervelt. Together, they combined Boeing's wood expertise with Westervelt's engineering know-how. The result? The BW seaplane, an amphibious biplane built with spruce and linen, materials chosen for their strength-to-weight ratio. Now, biplane means two wings stacked one above the other, which increases lift. Think of it as double the surface area for the same engine power. But why a seaplane? In the Pacific Northwest, lakes and waterways were more plentiful than runways. That's what we call adapting to local geography. The first flight of the BW was a sensation, yet, as is often the case with startups, initial demand was low. Air travel wasn't mainstream, and the technical term market validation proof that people actually want your product was still elusive. Still, William and George persisted. They founded Pacific Aero Products Co., the seed that would become the Boeing Company. The setup? A bold new business. The conflict? Limited customers and rapid technological shifts. Their resolution? Keep innovating and wait for the world to catch up, a gamble that would soon pay off in a big way. In 1917, the world changed overnight. The United States entered World War I. Suddenly, the demand for military aircraft soared. Commander Westervelt, always the strategist, urged Boeing to pursue government contracts. This was a turning point, what business experts call a pivot, shifting from civilian to military production. The company was renamed Boeing Airplane Company. They landed contracts to build training planes for the U.S. Navy, such as the Model C. If you're wondering, what's a trainer? Think of it as a basic car for new drivers, but in the sky. These planes were robust and forgiving, designed for pilots still learning the ropes. Production ramped up, and the company's technical capacity grew. Terms like mass production and supply chain logistics became part of Boeing's daily vocabulary. They had to scale fast, building dozens, then hundreds of aircraft. The conflict was clear: meet the urgent needs of war or risk being left behind. The resolution? Boeing delivered, and the war effort transformed the company from a small-time builder into a national player. This wartime expansion laid the groundwork for Boeing's future, proving that agility and adaptability are keys in any fast-moving industry. What happens when the war ends? For Boeing, peace brought a crisis. Suddenly, military contracts vanished, and the market was flooded with cheap surplus planes. Boeing had to adapt or face extinction. This is what economists call a market correction, when supply outpaces demand, forcing companies to rethink their strategies. Now, you might be thinking, why not just keep building planes? But with so many affordable ex-military aircraft available, few wanted new ones. Boeing diversified, making furniture, boats, and anything that could keep the factory running. This period tested the company's resilience and ingenuity. But Boeing didn't abandon aviation. Instead, they focused on innovation, developing new military and mail planes like the Model 15. Here, aerodynamics, the science of how air moves over surfaces, became a key focus. They experimented with lighter materials and streamlined shapes to improve flight performance. The post-war years were a struggle, but they taught Boeing a critical lesson: survive by being flexible. The conflict was existential, with the company's future hanging in the balance. The resolution? Diversification kept Boeing afloat until the next big opportunity arrived. Fast forward to World War II. Boeing's factories buzzed around the clock, producing legendary bombers like the B-17 Flying Fortress and the B-29 Superfortress. Why were these planes so important? The B-17, with its 4 engines and heavy armor, could fly long distances and survive enemy fire. Think of it as the tank of the skies. Mass production and assembly liners borrowed from the auto industry allowed Boeing to build thousands of bombers quickly. The B-29 was a technological marvel. It had pressurized cabins, a first for bombers, allowing crews to fly higher and safer. Let me paint a picture. Assembly plants employing tens of thousands, with women joining the workforce in record numbers. The phrase "Rosie the Riveter" comes to mind, symbolizing a societal shift as well as an industrial one. The conflict was global war, and the resolution was Boeing's transformation into an industrial giant. These innovations didn't just win battles, they set new standards in aviation technology. By war's end, Boeing was not just a company, but a national institution ready to tackle the peacetime challenges ahead. Let's talk about the jet age. In 1958, Boeing introduced the 707, their first commercial jetliner. This was a leap from propellers to jet engines, a technical term meaning turbines compressing air to create massive thrust. To put it simply, jets made planes go faster, farther, and higher. The 707 featured a pressurized cabin, which meant passengers could fly above the weather in comfort. Imagine crossing the continent in hours instead of days. A revolution in travel accessibility. But Boeing wasn't the first with jets. British and French companies had already entered the race. The conflict? Could Boeing catch up and win over airlines and passengers in a crowded market? Their resolution was all about reliability and scale. The 707 proved so dependable that it set the global standard for jet travel, launching the era of mass air transportation. If you've ever wondered why international travel exploded in the 1960s, thank the Boeing 707 and the visionaries behind it. The 1960s and 70s brought more innovation. Enter the Boeing 747, the jumbo jet. With its iconic hump and double deck, it could carry hundreds of passengers across oceans. The technical marvel here? Wide-body design, a fuselage big enough for twin aisles, making air travel affordable for the masses. But Boeing wasn't just about planes. They were a key NASA contractor, helping with the lunar orbiter and space shuttle programs. If you think about systems integration, combining complex subsystems into a total package, Boeing excelled here, linking engines, avionics, and safety systems seamlessly. The conflict was fierce competition, not just with rival companies, but with international governments and the new space race. Could Boeing maintain its lead across so many frontiers? The resolution? Diversification. Boeing became as much an aerospace company as an airplane builder, setting the stage for global leadership. And let's not forget, the 747 made world travel possible for families everywhere. If you've ever flown to another continent, you likely have Boeing to thank. As the world shrank, Boeing grew. The company expanded through partnerships and strategic acquisitions, most notably the 1997 merger with McDonnell Douglas, a move called industry consolidation. This means fewer, but stronger, competitors in the global marketplace. Boeing also opened manufacturing and service centers around the world, forging ties with airlines from Asia to Europe. Offset agreements where companies invest in local economies in exchange for contracts helped Boeing win business in new markets. But global expansion brings challenges, cultural differences, international regulations, and new competitors like Airbus. The conflict? Could Boeing adapt to a fast-changing, interconnected world? The resolution was agility and a relentless focus on innovation. By the early 2000s, Boeing was not just an American icon, but a truly global powerhouse. Let me ask, in an age when competition is everywhere, how do you stay on top? For Boeing, the answer was to think and act globally. The new millennium brought both triumph and turbulence for Boeing. Technologically, the company pushed boundaries with the 787 Dreamliner using composite materials for lighter, more fuel-efficient planes, a sustainability milestone. The 777X boasts the world's largest turbofan engine. Imagine a jet engine the size of a house. But there were setbacks. The grounding of the 737 MAX after 2 tragic crashes exposed flaws in software design and regulatory oversight, reminding us that redundancy and fail-safe systems are not just jargon, but matters of life and death. Now you might ask, can Boeing bounce back? The company overhauled its safety protocols and governance while investing in digital technologies and alternative energy solutions. The conflict? Recovering public trust and financial stability in a hyper-competitive post-pandemic world. The resolution is still unfolding, but Boeing remains committed to innovation and responsibility. So, as we look ahead, one question remains. Can Boeing continue to soar in a world of constant change? Let's step back and consider the big picture. Boeing's journey from a timber workshop to a global aerospace leader mirrors the evolution of modern industry. The technical terms vertical integration and systems engineering aren't just business buzzwords, they're the foundation of Boeing's success. But every achievement came with a challenge: economic downturns, regulatory hurdles, and fierce competition. Through it all, Boeing's resilience shone through, driven by a culture of relentless innovation and adaptability. Let me tell you a story. Each time Boeing faced a setback, it used it as a springboard for new growth. Whether it was war, peace, or crisis, the company adapted, leading the way in safety, technology, and global reach. Now, as sustainability and digital transformation reshape the skies, Boeing's future will depend on its ability to evolve yet again. The next generation of engineers and dreamers will decide what comes next. If you're wondering what makes a company endure, look no further than Boeing, a story of human ambition, ingenuity, and the relentless pursuit of the skies.